Range, power, style, comfort, efficiency. How on earth do we separate two of the best electric vehicles on the market today? Well, we'll do our best on this show, and we need your help figuring it out as well. My name is Martin Lee. Welcome along to the channel. If you like what we do here, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss a show. What are your choices? Well, Model 3, in many places, in 3 variations. What used to be called the Standard Range Plus, SR Plus. That is your entry-level model, standard range. Then there is the Long Range and the Performance. With the latter two, all-wheel drive. With Polestar, you also get 3 variants, although you can argue there's less of a difference between them, but we'll get into that later. You have the entry-level standard range. Then you have 2 long-range variants, but one of them is the single motor, the other is the dual motor. Let's talk about styling before we move to the good stuff like power and range. And we'll kick off with the Polestar because some people have just fallen in love with the looks. And you know what? I think I'm right there with you. Look at it. It's just striking. It's got a really poised stance, and that black trim around the base and kick plates make it seem like it's sitting a little higher than it actually is, It's quite an angular car in comparison with the Model 3, which is more about curves and smooth lines. It definitely looks like its design was more influenced by aerodynamics than the Polestar. On the inside, the differences in styling remain. Tesla remains as the benchmark in minimalism, not just in the EV world, but in automotive, really. There's next to no buttons at all, and they keep taking things away from the car. A couple remain as rotary knobs on the steering wheel to release the doors, etc. Although not the same level as Tesla, the Polestar is definitely a lot less busy inside than a BMW i4, for instance. But it will be that more familiar to fans of German luxury brands than Tesla will, and it could be they want that compromise. It might just be finding a happy middle ground between those two different styles. Before we talk about batteries, range and charging, let's check on the practical elements like the space outside and in. The Tesla is fractionally longer and wider than the Polestar, although it sits a little lower. What we really care about is convenience and practicality. So what about the trunk and the boot space? Well, the Tesla wins hands down. Storage in the Polestar is 405 litres, a lot less than the 561 litres in the Tesla. The frunk in the Tesla, 88 litres. It really beats the 35 litres in the Polestar. But to defend the Polestar for a moment, access to the trunk and boot space is far superior. It has a kick-open trunk, and it's a lot bigger, the opening, than Tesla. It's part that some Tesla fans don't like about their Model 3. It makes getting goods in and out just that little bit easier. Let's move on to the batteries, range and charging, and we'll start with the batteries. What goes into these two cars? It gets a little tricky here, I'll explain why, because there are 3 different variants of each car, but I'm going to make some rough comparisons anyway to see how it shapes up. Entry-level Polestar, usable battery, 67 kilowatt hours. That's decent. Not about the size of the battery though, it's what you do with it, and the Polestar has a real-world range just under 250 miles. Model 3, battery, good bit smaller, but it depends on what market you're in, what stage production is at. Tesla moves so quickly with different iterations of the Model 3, it's impossible to say if you order a certain car at a certain time and it'll come from a certain factory, you'll get a certain battery. But the LFP battery, lithium iron phosphate battery, has a usable capacity of 58 kilowatt hours, but that legendary Tesla efficiency wins, and the range will be pretty much the same as the Polestar, doing the same really with a lot less resources. And it gets more interesting as we move up the range as well. Both Tesla and Polestar have opted for 75 kilowatt hour usable battery packs, for their longest range and performance versions. If you're looking for pure range, go for the Model 3 long range, or in the case of the Polestar, the single motor long range. But even though the battery packs are a similar size and Tesla gets a good bit more out of it in terms of range, again thanks to efficiency. Expect to hit around 300 miles in the real world from a long-range Tesla, but the Polestar will fall short of that in many circumstances, maybe 260 to 270 miles. If you're buying the performance versions of these cars, you can take off maybe 15-20 miles of range. And what happens when you want to charge up these stunning machines? Well, both will go up to 11 kilowatts on AC charging. If you're charging at home, you're probably going to max out 7 or 8 kilowatts in many countries. Either way, an overnight charge will do you just fine. On DC, the Polestar can take 150 kilowatts, but the charging curve suggests you'll struggle to hold that rate much past 20%. Tesla, on the other hand, will take upwards of 200 kilowatts and maybe close to 250, depending on when and where your Model 3 was produced. And now onto the good stuff. We're talking performance. The entry-level Model 3 will do 0 to 62 miles an hour, 0 to 100 k's in 6.1 seconds. That's the entry-level Model 3. That's a bit faster, by a fair bit actually, than Polestar's entry-level 7.4 seconds versus 6.1. But the gap really widens when you move to the longer-range versions of these cars. You see, Polestar opted to leave their long-range version single motor, so it doesn't have close to the same level of power as the Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive. The Polestar, 0 to 62, 7.4 seconds. The Tesla equivalent, 4.4 seconds. That's 324 kilowatts of power. And if you're chasing pure speed, it's the performance versions of these cars you want. Tesla uses a straightforward performance name, whereas Polestar calls theirs the long-range dual motor. So, what do you get? Power in the Polestar is 300 kilowatts, but it's dwarfed by 413 kilowatts in the Tesla. It's an interesting thing that both cars have about the same amount of torque though. Although the Polestar doing 0 to 62 miles an hour in 4.7 seconds is massively impressive, it's 3.3 in the Tesla, a whole nother level. Let's mention price before we try to figure out which one is best. It's really difficult to compare these on prices because the amount of money you pay is so different, varying from country to country and region to region. But where I am, so I'm in the UK, you can get a Polestar for about £40,000, entry-level Tesla, £46,000. Now, that's the same amount of money as a Polestar dual motor long range, which is faster and has more range. And if you want the performance Model 3, you'll be shelling out £60,000. So if you're thinking about either of these cars, make sure you check out your local pricing and incentives, which means it'll be a very different price to what I pay. So what separates these two cars, and why would you buy one over the other? Obviously, pricing is a factor. The blistering pace of the Model 3 performance may seal the deal. If you want that roller coaster experience every time you bury your right foot, nothing comes close. And depending on where you live, the Supercharger network may well be a convenience you simply cannot live without. The experience of plotting routes, preconditioning and reliability of Superchargers trumps pretty much everything else. The Tesla also offers a bit more luggage space as well, but the Polestar has a heck of a lot to offer. For many people, the Tesla experience doesn't fit very well with them. They might not like the look and feel of the Model 3, that pure minimalistic look. In fact, for spending 60 grand, what do you get? Huge performance, great engineering, the best software, but you might look around in the car, and if you're the kind of person that wants to just see a little bit more for your money, Polestar may well be the car you want for quality and luxury. Maybe the range in the Polestar is enough for you, and you don't care about that extra second to get to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. So in conclusion, let us know what you think in the comments below. Two exceptional cars featured today, so similar in many ways and yet also so different. And which one would you go for? Maybe neither float your boat. Maybe you're Team i4 or Team Ioniq 5. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching today. Remember to join us on Facebook and Instagram. We'll keep the conversation going in the comments below. I love reading those. And I'll see you on the next one.